Hi everyone, welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. I am flying solo today because Trisha was having some internet issues, kind of like I was a couple weeks ago. But anyway, it's funny, she sent me a text and said that she was currently waiting on the AT&T people, and I was thinking, I know that feeling. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm flying solo today, and I kind of thought that a good topic would be four strategies for overcoming weight loss plateaus. This is a question that I've been getting a lot lately in regards to how can I kind of break through the weight loss plateau and move forward. And aside from digging in deeper, and doing some of the functional testing and kind of seeing, where your gut is, hormones are, there are four just basic strategies that can actually work. And they are fairly common or fairly simple. The very first one would be to evaluate and adjust your diet. Trish and I both are big proponents of mindful eating and not necessarily having to track and monitor like macros 24/7 all the time. Ultimately we want a lot of our clients to be able to mindfully eat and just really become in tune with listening to your body and not just having to live by MyFitnessPal or a Chronometer or wherever, on a long-term basis. But with that being said, if you're not tracking, I would say that, kind of doing a little bit of a refresher can help. I actually do this. I've tracked so much within, a decade or more. It's actually been more than a decade that I kind of know, but I will say that I have had moments of kind of fooling myself or lying to myself or not wanting to admit the ugly truth of things. With that being said, I will sometimes go back and do a refresher. I'll track a couple of days just to see where I'm naturally landing and assess from there. That can be a good idea. With that caveat, I would say if you do actually do that, track at the end of the day or track as you go along and don't actually look at the numbers, because sometimes when we track and we see the numbers, then we're, intentionally thinking, oh, well, I should eat more protein, or, oh, I shouldn't eat this many carbs or whatever. I think the better strategy would be to get a baseline as to where you're naturally averaging and adjust from there. A couple of things. You want to ensure that you're eating a balanced diet, not too many carbs. Usually it's an issue of too many carbs, too many fats, and not enough protein. Also, sugar is one, just ensuring that's my weakness, always my weakness. Everybody knows this. Anybody that knows me knows that's my weakness. But for me, it tends to be the snacks and they start kind of growing and getting bigger and bigger, so it's sometimes I'll lie to myself and say, oh, my diet's been really well or really good, and then I'll actually go back and track and I'm like, oh, well, holy cow, those snacks are really adding up. So going and tracking a little bit, or even just writing down what you're eating and then going back and referencing and looking. But again, some of the common pitfalls are usually, sugar, the licks, bites. If any of y'all have kids, it's easy. I am a big proponent. Everybody in my family picks on me because the saying that I always say is somebody's going to eat that. We don't waste food, which is probably not a good strategy, but I think it's growing up in the deprivation, mindset. But it can be, there's something left. Prime example, my son, I had bought him some of the 3 Wishes cereal, which, by the way, if y'all haven't tried that, y'all should try it. It's really good. It doesn't have any of the inflammatory foods. It's got like 8 grams of protein. It's a good cereal. Anyway, he specifically asked for it, and it was not on sale, which means it was like $8 for a box of cereal. he pours a bowl of cereal and he takes a couple of bites and then he doesn't eat it. And I come back later and I see him like, well, why didn't you eat this cereal? He's like, oh, well, it wasn't that much. I'm like, it's a whole bowl of cereal. This box of cereal is like $8. Anyway, I ended up eating it just because I didn't want to waste it. But if any of y'all have younger kids, it's very common for us to finish the plate, or as we're preparing food, we're taking bites, we're taking, licks, we're just kind of munching on things. Not going too long between meals, and also not letting yourself get too hungry. If you let yourself get too hungry, you're going to be in a hunger emergency, and in turn, nothing but the high calorie or energy dense foods are going to sound good. So potentially going back, assessing, maybe tracking to see where you're, going, but assessing your nutrition to see, are you eating balanced? Are you mindfully eating? Are you sitting while you're eating? Are you chewing your food properly? Or are you ensuring that you're eating to your full and then stopping? So that's the number one. That's the obvious one. Number two would be to revamp your exercise routine. If you're doing the same thing you've been doing for however long and you're getting the same results, it may be time to change things up. Our bodies will adapt over time, adjust and adapt over time. It's the same thing like with calories, like with nutrition. If you've been consistently eating 2,000 calories for a long time and you've hit a weight loss plateau, then you might need to either reverse diet and spend a period of time eating more, or you might need to drop your calories a little bit and eat a little bit less. Same thing with exercise. If you're doing the exact same thing, you're not getting a result, then you may need to revamp your exercise routine. It is really, really good to ensure that you have some resistance training piece set in, that you're also really, really prioritizing recovery. That is a big one. And I've done this for 13 plus years now, and it's funny because I preach this to my clients, but I also have to preach this to myself, because I like to do, I like to work out, I like to do everything, or all the things that I enjoy. But, when my goals are specific, like for example, if I have a specific goal for fat loss, I have to be specific with my training as well. I can't continue to do, I can't train 6-7 days a week, and do the same things and get the same result. I have to prioritize recovery and ensure that overall stress is being balanced, because that's the important thing. A lot of people do not realize that being in a calorie deficit is a stress on our body, and then training is a stress on our body. And without a balance between the two, we can kind of spin our wheels. Some people are going to be more sensitive to stress than other people, so keep that in mind. Some people can kind of get away with doing a little bit more initially, but keep in mind, if you're, if you have not adjusted your exercise or adjusted your training, you may want to, take a step back and look at that, because that may actually be your problem. You may be training like you are eating in maintenance, but yet you're trying to eat in a calorie deficit to break through a weight loss plateau. Ensuring that we have some variety with training, that's important. Having some resistance training. Someone had made a comment today on one of the posts that I made of that they had, it was Kathy. Kathy said that she had experienced a weight loss plateau, and we just made the comment about, menopause bodies, whatever. And there are a ton of studies in regards to perimenopause, menopause, just 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be more. And I do want to emphasize that more is not necessarily better in this situation, but just 5 minutes of some form of HIIT, and that's going to be different for everybody. The definition of HIIT is essentially our heart rate increasing. So we want to get our heart rate usually in the 140 or higher zone. Like if you see your heart rate like at 175, you probably need to slow the heck down, because I don't want nobody falling out or having a heart attack or anything like that. But you want your heart rate to get up, but you want it to be able to come back down. So HIIT, high intensity interval training, is where you're intentionally getting your heart rate up, but then you have periods of bringing it back down. And that looks different for everybody. Sometimes that can just be a matter of walking really, really fast for somebody. You know, you walk really fast, you get your heart rate up, and then you slow down and bring it back. But just 5 minutes a day can make a major, major impact for us women, especially in like perimenopause and menopause. 5 minutes a day of HIIT can make a very, very big impact. But having a balance of training, you know, the resistance piece, and then also active recovery. So your LISS or NEAT, kind of same thing, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and then LISS, low intensity steady state. Basically, that's just walking. It's just moving more. You know, I would make the suggestion to look at that, and I am all about small incremental changes. So if you wear an Apple Watch or an activity tracker and you look and you say, you know, oh gosh, you know, well, I've been stuck on this project at work. I'm sitting, you know, I'm only averaging like 5,000 steps a day. You know, I would say start there and start, you know, intentionally increase your movement. You know, for example, if you're averaging 5,000 steps, then increase to 6,000 steps. And then see how your body responds from there. Don't go from 5,000 steps to 10,000 steps. That is actually going to, your body will probably look at that as a stressor versus respond well to it. So small incremental changes, because it's one of those things like if you're playing poker, you know, if you can win the game with just showing a card, why would you give it all up? You know, like if you can just, you know, show one card and win the game. That's a horrible analogy, but y'all get the idea. Anyway, so adjusting and modifying your training. Third one is, surprise, surprise, manage stress and work to improve your sleep if that is a struggle. Stress is one of the biggest root sources of metabolic chaos that we can have, like, and whether that's hormone imbalance, gut dysbiosis, you know, like stress is almost always, you know, like blood sugar dysregulation, like stress is almost always the root source. And stress meaning it can be, Trish and I have harped on this for so long, like environmental stress from the food that we're eating, stress from our training, you know, stress from our lifestyle, you know, stress from lack of sleep, stress from alcohol consumption, you know, like it's going to be from different areas, but properly managing and balancing overall stress. And again, stress is going to look different for everybody. You know, stress for me may look different from stress from Jennifer. I saw Jennifer was watching. It may be different for her. You know, her body may adjust and adapt to stress easier than mine, you know, so it's all about the perception and how we, you know, process and also manage stress, you know. So this is why ensuring that we are allowing enough recovery, we are minimizing stressors where we can, we are prioritizing sleep, because sleep is essentially like one of the primary ways that our body reduces overall stress. Like, you ever notice how, like, when you're sick, so when we're sick, stress is high on our body. So stress is high on our body because our body is, you know, is sick, is trying to heal. It's, you know, it's not at 100%, you know, from a state of health. What is the number one best thing that we can do for our body when we're sick? Sleep. Like sleep and hydration. That is like the number one thing that we can do, but sleep is like at the top of the list. So if you're struggling with sleep, you know, if you're, you know, obviously for some of us who have younger kids or, you know, whatever, work night shift, whatever the situation may be, you know, it's not, some of this may be out of our control, but the things that you can control, you know, kind of focus your direction there. So if you're, you know, scrolling TikTok videos or Instagram, you know, and you're got your face in your phone, you know, late at night, or electronics, and you're staying up late, or you're really into reading books and you find yourself staying up too late and you know you got to get up at 5 a.m., you know, set reminders on your phone to ensure that you're getting, I would make the suggestion to ensure that you're getting at least 7 hours a night, if possible, when you can. So sleep sleep, managing stress, meditation, deep breathing, all of those, and be mindful of just the extra stressors. Essentially, don't add more onto your already heavy plate if you can help it. And lastly would be to monitor your hormone health, and this is one that it's an obvious, and a lot of us women, like, we know when something's not right. It's funny, I was telling my husband the other day, I was like, wait a minute, I told him, I was like, wait a minute, I'm having a hot flash. And I told him, I was like, I can literally think about having a hot flash and then have a hot flash. It's like I can like manifest a hot flash. But if you're experiencing like hot flashes on a regular basis, like very frequent, or they have increased, or your menstrual cycle, has been regular and all of a sudden it's not, like all of a sudden it's heavier, it's shorter, it's longer, it's, any of those, like that is a clear sign that, your hormones are not properly balanced. That will play a major role in overall, like weight loss, like if that is your primary goal, so ensuring that, things are are balanced and flowing well there is super, super important. Now, if you're in a situation where, you are already in menopause, or you're in perimenopause and your cycles are very irregular already, I would say to monitor, like I said, monitor the hot flashes, monitor, like, do you seem to retain water easily? Do you, do things just don't feel right? Like, is your hair getting brittle? Is your nails getting brittle? Like, how does your skin look? All of those things are going to play a role and be an indicator as to hormone health. Keep in mind that there is a significant connection. Yes, I know y'all get tired of hearing me say this. I know y'all do. There is a significant connection to our gut and our hormone health. So it is not uncommon to repair your gut or work towards healing your gut and find that, like, your menstrual cycles are regular. They're less heavy. They're lighter. They're 5 days rather than 10 days. It's not uncommon for that to happen because there is a significant connection to our hormones and our gut. And if you're unsure, if you're having symptoms that your hormones may be imbalanced, I would encourage everyone to, get tested. If you hadn't had a physical in years, go get a physical. Request, ask the doctor to, ask your primary care physician. If you don't have a primary care physician, reach out. Trish and I both can run Dutch tests, which is actually more of an in-depth hormone testing than what our doctors normally do. Prime example is a couple years ago, I went in for a physical. My primary complaint was I had not had a menstrual cycle in 11 months and my sleep was crap. And it was just one of those things where wake up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., 2 to 3, the witching hour, and menstrual cycle just kind of disappeared. And the only hormones that she tested was my estrogen and my FSH. That's it. And I gotta say that everything as a whole paints a much bigger picture. You can't just test two things and then, try to diagnose the problem. It's like taking your car into the shop and, the tire is wobbly and all they do is test our tire pressure and be like, oh, you need some air in your tire. Like that's just testing one or two, things is not going to paint the bigger picture and to tell you, what is going on. So with that being said, if you're unsure and you haven't had a physical in years, get a physical, get your hormones tested, see where that is. But also I would argue to look into, like, if you are experiencing obvious gut imbalances, like if you're experiencing bloating, constipation, diarrhea, any of those things, like sugar cravings that are out of control, like any of those things, like you probably would want to address and look at that as well, because I get this all the time and I get clients that reach out all the time. I personally always suggest looking at the gut before hormones, because if there is any type of issue going on within the gut where Malabsorption is an issue, like if you're not absorbing nutrients or you're not breaking down protein or just breaking down the food in general, that's going to play a direct role in your hormones. You know, so people that go and they go to the hormone doctor, and next thing you know, their doctor's giving them testosterone pellets and hasn't even addressed the fact that they have like no progesterone, or addressed the fact that, you know, they've had IBS their whole life. You know, like that's just basically putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound and expecting it to heal, because that is not gonna work. But anyway, I will say the testosterone pellets will probably give you a little bit of energy and make you feel a little bit better initially, but there are other things that you could do, you know, that will do the exact same thing, like taking a methylated B vitamin. But anyway, with that being said, recap, evaluate and adjust your diet. See, are there some incidentals? Are there some things that you're not accounting for? Are you under eating? Are you overeating? Are you doing well during the week and then blowing it on the weekends? You know, so just take a step back, adjust that. Revamp your exercise routine, so ensuring that you have a base of some resistance training, but that you're allowing proper recovery, and that you are not training like you're eating at maintenance, you know, because you're not. You know, it's if you've got a quarter tank of gas in your car and you ain't got no money, you don't want to try to plan a long road trip, because you ain't gonna make it. Same thing if you're intentionally eating a calorie deficit and you're still trying to train 6 days a week, you need to assess that the fact that you don't have as much gas in your tank. So your car is going to end up breaking down. Manage stress and work to improve sleep, and then address any hormone or gut imbalances. But with that being said, I hope this was helpful. And if anybody has any questions or suggestions, post on the video, and I'll talk to y'all later.